So we have pulled out a print mat today just to make it a little bit easier and something where we could kind of show you all the different steps that we're going to work on. The first thing I wanted to mention to you is just how a ruler works. We find that we go over this a lot in matting and a lot of the art classes. The main thing is to know what these little lines on the ruler represent. And so they represent fractions. All of our rulers that are in the art room are not metric. There are no centimeters on them. The only difference between the sides is whether or not you're talking about eighths or sixteenths. So the sixteenths is the more complex side of the ruler. The eighth is the more simple side of the ruler. And when I'm saying that, I'm talking about the denominator of the fraction. And so that's really important to know because we'll often have students pull out their calculator and tell us that something is like 3/10, and that's just not a measurement that you're going to have or work with. And so we would recommend working with a scrap of paper or writing on the border of your artwork rather than using your calculator at all. So for this little print that I have here, I can work with a smaller ruler because it's a smaller piece, but you might choose to work with the yardstick instead. And so I'm going to line up my ruler right against the edge of the work itself because on your piece, maybe you have a border and you've got marks out here or tears or something else. You don't want to show that. You just want to show the actual work itself. And so I'm starting with the height of the artwork, and that looks like it's going to be 11 and a fraction with it. So I'm going to write down the 11 on here, and then I'm going to count to see what it is. And it looks like it's 1, 2, 3/8. So I'm going to write down 11 and 3/8 for the height of the piece. And then I'm going to write an X, which represents the word by for the other measurement. And then I'm going to lay it across to do the width of the piece, which is just like 9 inches on the dot. So that one's pretty easy. And so that's the measurement of the original artwork. You want to make sure that you have that written down somewhere, and you want to make sure that it's correct. One of the biggest problems in matting is that people don't start with correct measurements. Then you're going to take it and you want to make sure that what you're going to cut is going to go over your artwork just the tiniest bit. And so you want to round down by about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to round this down to 11 and 1/8 by 8 and 3/4. So just about 1/4 of an inch on each side in order to make sure that it covers it up some. Oftentimes we have students who cut and do everything and then it falls through. And that's really frustrating for us and for them because then they have to start over again. And then if you recall, we said that we were going to make a mat that is traditionally like 2 inches on the left side, the top, the right side, and then the bottom usually gets an extra 1/2 an inch to it. So all together, you're going to have a 2-inch border the whole way around and a 2.5-inch border at the bottom. So to my width across, which is this 8 and 3/4 measurement, I'm going to add 2 inches and 2 inches or 4 inches. So I'm going to write that down. That's what I'm adding on to this. And to the height of the piece, I'm going to add 2 inches for the top and 2.5 at the bottom or 4.5. And now I'm just going to go ahead and do some math in here. And so I'm going to start with a really easy measurement to calculate. So I'm going to add my whole numbers together, which would be 12, and I'm going to bring down the 3/4 inch fraction. Over on this side, I need to add together 1/8 and 1/2. If you don't remember about how to add fractions, you need to make the denominator match. And so you want to change this so that it is 8 over 4, and then I can add it together to get 5/8. And then I can add the whole numbers together. If at this point you look at your numbers and they don't make sense, or you're struggling to make the denominators match and add them together, just ask. Oftentimes I'll have a student who has a whole number still inside the fraction and they need to pull this out. But the nice thing is that for our video today, this is the final measurement that I'm going to work with. So down here at the bottom, this is the size of the mat that I'm going to go and cut. This is the size of the original artwork. And again, I would keep these measurements until you finish cutting so that any errors that happen we can refer to and figure out where there might have been a problem.